Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. I am Shayna Weber. I work for ISA. If you didn't already know, here I am. We are doing a ISA Presents Finding a Mentor with Kaia Alexander and Kawan Glover. Welcome, both of you. How are you?
Hey, Shayna. So happy to be here with you.
I am fantastic.
Good. It's a good Thursday. I feel hectic today, so I don't know. I feel like I didn't stop all day. So this is kind of nice, to kind of like sit down and breathe and have a
Good.
fun conversation.
You
So
get to breathe. You get to relax. We're both talking.
I know, right? So welcome everybody. If this is your first time here, this is kind of how it works. We like to have conversational talks. I'm going to throw some questions at both of these folks. They're going to answer. We're talking all about mentors today. And I'm so excited because Kaia has such great advice. Kawan is a mentee to Kaia. So that's exciting. We get to see both sides of this conversation. If you guys have any questions throughout, feel free to throw them in the comments. We're going to star them and pull them aside. May jump in if we see one pop up. But put your questions in the comments. We'll also grab some at the end if you think of some as we go, if we haven't answered them in the process. So yes, we will begin. First, let's just do some basic introductions. So Kaia, let's start with you.
Sure. It's so great to be here. It's so lovely to meet you all. Thanks for having me. I'm the founder and CEO of the Entertainment Business School, and I started my career a while ago now. It's almost 20 years as a development exec. So I was with a company that it doesn't exist anymore, but at the time it was called Inferno Entertainment. And we made a lot of movies with New Line. So we co-produced with New Line quite a lot. We did Just Friends with Ryan Reynolds, Peaceful Warrior with Nick Nolte, The Good Night with Gwyneth Paltrow, Penelope Cruz. I could go on. I got to be on a lot of really cool movies. And I'm also a writer. So I'm a novelist, a Harper Collins novelist with my book Written in the Ashes. So I like to say I speak fluent business and fluent creative, fluent writer for you all. So I translate the scary business stuff into more fun, palatable, creative side for us writers. And then I went to work for comedian Garry Shandling. And I love Garry, miss Garry. Garry was one of my great mentors of my life, especially in Hollywood in the entertainment business. He really taught me how to think. So we're talking about mentorship tonight. And I also host the Hollywood Wolfpack podcast. So that's a little bit from me. And you have with me one of my mentees, the amazing Kawan Glover. And I'm so excited that he's here with us and you get a chance to hear from him.
Awesome. Thank you. Go for it, Kawan.
I'll take it away. Okay, my name is Kawan Glover, as she just said. I'm one of her mentees, her best mentee. She'll never say it out loud, but obviously that's true. I'm a stroke and 3-time brain surgery survivor. I'm also an author, now a screenwriter, a rep screenwriter. And, me and Kaia's journey started a few years ago, but the things I've learned through EBS, the things I learned from her professionally, personally, and through my own ventures in the screenwriting industry and shaping my career based on my life experiences has taught me a lot, and I'm still learning something new every day. So one of the reasons I'm here is just to share my experience about how it is learning from someone who has such a storied career and how to take that and use that to your advantage, which I am doing currently. I feel like I'm on the precipice, and a lot of that, most of that, almost all of that is because of my mentorship with Kaia.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that you have confidence in where you're at, being on that precipice, and like we're just gonna see you sail. I love that. Speaking of education, so I love, Kawan, what you just said about learning every day. I think that's something that's super important. Like it's never ending. I mean, being a writer, being in this industry, like they say that famous quote, it's like having homework every day for the rest of your life. It truly is. And if you're not continuing your education and keeping yourself up to speed on what's going on and what's changing, then you're going to stay stuck and people are going to know that. So on that same subject, can you talk, Kaia, can you talk about Entertainment Business School, what that is, what you teach, and we're going to throw up a code for that and a link in here so you guys get a lovely discount. But I wanted to get this out here right now. So we're talking about that. So you're like, wait, I want to learn more. How do I do that? How do I get in this zone? that we're talking about today. And so I want to kind of share that information first before we get into the mentor talk.
Sure, of course. I'll just talk story with you for a moment, real talk. So it was the pandemic, and like everyone, I suddenly was a school teacher at home with my child. And I was spending way too much time on Twitter, I have to confess. And I started having some open Zooms and just doing exactly what we're doing right now, just talking. And I'm a big listener. I love to listen. I've really admired the career of like Gloria Steinem, who is just such an incredible listener. And I felt like I could learn a lot right now from creatives, from those younger than me, from what's happening in the industry. And then I thought, well, I have all this time, so I'm going to look for some mentees. Maybe I could mentor some writers. So in the midst of all of that listening, I started seeing repeating mistakes, repeating patterns, and a lot of confusion, especially from writers going, I don't know if I should work for free or if I should sign that contract or if I should have a contract or, you know, and then just navigating the career part of this, like the craft, which you love your stories, you love your pilot, you love your features, you love your portfolio, you love all these amazing characters that you've created. And then you realize, oh my God, I'm in sales. Like, you know, it's like every writer's nightmare. I know it was kind of mine. And, so becoming a development exec and going, oh my God, I'm now in the buyer's chair. And I was always the buyer who would be like, producers, you can stop talking for a minute. What does the writer have to say? Like, I love the writers, and I let the writer talk about their story, please. Right. Especially if a pitch was really going sideways and the producers were botching it. And I'd be like, oh my God. But if you could just get the writer to talk about what they're passionate about, I'd be like, oh, it's going great. So I realized in the pandemic, I'm chatty, but this is your answer. I realized in the pandemic, I was like, oh my God, I speak fluent exec. I speak fluent buyer. And there are these are things writers can learn. You don't have to be confused or stay confused or be like, oh my God, I'm beating my head against the wall. How do I break in? How do I navigate this, you know, opaque business? It's like, you know, you're dropped into the dark just without a map. Like, oh my God, what do I do? So that was the inception of the Entertainment Business School. And the first beta class was in 2021. I just said, I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you and you're going to work with me and develop what helps you. So now we have a 9-week syllabus and curriculum that covers all the business stuff like negotiating and financing and pitching and branding. And I come at this for creatives, so all above the line creatives, if you're a hyphenate or a writer or producer, about how do you navigate the business side. Like ISA teaches so much amazing craft and business, and there are others out there who are teaching craft and you've learned your craft. I don't teach craft. That's the difference. I'm teaching you how to navigate the business side. And now I have Kawan with us in the Entertainment Business School. He works with me as the chief of biz dev. We're excited to tell you our story of how we met, because we feel like it could be kismet for some of you with how you are looking for your mentors who can help you navigate this business, because it's really significant to have someone beside you lighting the dark.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're all walking around going, okay, what do I do next? And no one knows what they're doing. And so it's so lovely when you can find a person or people who help you in that way. And I think the more that you're asking questions and finding out information, you're just more empowered. It's like, it's not that hard to find out information, but it's hard to find people who will give it to you in a way that is easily digestible. So I love that you're like breaking it down into like the way that we can easily go, okay, I can navigate this. I can figure this out. And I signed up for Entertainment Business School.
Yes, Shayna's going to be with us in summer. Woohoo!
So I'm excited because I still feel, you know, I'm fairly new to this, and I've made very bad deals, and I've done all the mistakes that we're all making as we go. So I'm like, all right, time to get to business. Let's learn.
Proud of you. It's a scary decision sometimes. Was it for you to decide, okay, I'm learning the business?
I don't think it was scary. I think it was like, it's about time. Okay. Like, what have you been waiting for? Honestly. You know, I think what Kawan said, he's like right on the precipice. I feel like once you get to that spot where you're like, all right, I should know this stuff because I'm about to be diving right into it, then you're ready for it. So, okay, so let's talk about, before we get into your guys' relationship and how you met and how, Kawan, you got Kaia to be your mentor. I'm looking forward to this conversation about how this happens, because mentors are always so mystifying to me, and they always seem to like happen in these magical moments. And I know, Kaia, your story with Garry is kind of similar to that, but will you talk about the different types of mentors that there are, and kind of like break that down? And then let's roll right into how you and Kawan became mentor mentee.
Yeah, I have an easy answer for that one. I think there's really only two kinds of mentors, a craft mentor or a business mentor.
Okay.
It's sort of rare to get both.
Okay.
It's sort of rare to get both. So you have to know what you're looking for and what you need. And a best case scenario is going to be a mentor who then can employ you or open doors for you. But not all of them do. Some of them are just looking to impart their wisdom and what they've learned. So the craft mentor, number one, the business mentor, number two.
Okay. And for you, how was Garry Shandling? How did he come to be your mentor? And like, how did you facilitate that with him? That's major. That's like huge. I love this story, because again, it's sort of like you didn't like force yourself. It was natural.
Yeah, it was. So for those of you who have seen Garry's shows or you haven't, he was really known on HBO for the Larry Sanders Show, which was a show he created and show ran. And of course, I mean, he hosted the Emmys and, how many times in a row and everything. He was a fixture on television for decades. And I know a lot of the young people don't know him now because he got kind of more known by that generation as like, oh, the senator from Iron Man, right? You're like, oh no, he was a really famous comedian. Yeah, really famous comedian for a lot of years. So of course I knew Garry from television, and I lived in LA, and I had a career wherein I met a lot of celebrities and was comfortable in that space. And I also, the protocol of like what to say, what not to say, and be real, be a human being. And a lot of people aren't. A lot of people act ridiculous around celebrities and go gaga. The starstruck thing is really true. So I met Garry, but I didn't know I was meeting Garry, which is funny. I was in a clothing store in Venice, and I saw a guy at the mirror who had a Zen symbol of the Enso, which is this incomplete circle. It's like a brush stroke, if you've ever seen it, like, in a yoga studio or something. But it was on the back of his neck. It was a tattoo. And I am a little bit of a blurter outerer. I have ADHD, so sometimes shit flies out of my mouth. I don't know if I can say that, but that's just the truth. So he's across the store, and I go, oh my God, you have an Enso tattoo. That's so cool. And this guy turns around, and he looks at me, and he like just pierces me with his eyes. And I was like, oh my God, it's Garry Shandling. And I, of course, remembered him from television and Breaking the Fourth Wall, and It's the Garry Shandling Show. And that was when I was a kid. So it was honestly the little kid in me that was like, oh, I love Garry. He feels like an old friend to me. Right. So there was this sort of immediate like, hey, what's going on, man? And he was with comedian Orny Adams, who was hitting on the shop clerk. So he was like hanging to give Orny plenty of time to get this girl's number. And so we kind of fell into conversation, and it was like the show business and Zen and camping and what he was doing now, and what happened with his show. And I felt like we talked for a few hours, and then he was like, do you want to just come to dinner? So I flowed straight into dinner with them. And it was a few hours. And by the end of the night, he was like, are you working right now? And I had just left my job as a development exec, and that terrifying abyss of, oh my God, I don't have work. What am I going to do? How am I going to pay my rent, in LA, which is such an affordable city to live in. And Garry was like, come to the house on Thursday. And I became like a girl Friday for him. I mean, there wasn't anything I didn't do between like, picking up the chicken or helping him call back the Los Angeles Times, reporter, or just anything.
Chicken or chicken for dinner?
I didn't have it. At that time, he didn't have animals. He had a dog named Chef. But it's just to say that, like, I was so happy to just be there, because he was such a magnanimous and generous and hilarious and kind-hearted human being. And I was learning so much of what I teach now. I didn't even know then I was learning. So I was, there 6 days a week and, just doing everything that I could to help him. And it became a mentorship. It started more like, he's like, oh, you need to know this about the business. You need to know this about show business. And I was just a sponge. And I had come from being a development exec, but there was so much I still didn't know that Garry had a POV on, like his perspective on what he thought about that. And I was just like, yes, sir, anything you say. And then eventually, I don't know, it was a number of months that went by. And he was like, so you're a writer. Like, what are you writing? What can I read? And he was reading everyone who was in his space. So he started reading me. I think he read part of my novel and we talked about it and he wanted to help me find an agent. He wrote a few letters for me. But that didn't happen for a while. Yeah. And I was surprised when that happened. I was like, you want to help me? Like, what? I couldn't believe it. I don't know if it was imposter syndrome or I was just young or I felt like I didn't have my voice yet, but he saw something there that I don't even know that I knew how to see in myself. He was really the first person in my life who thought I was funny. I have a very low flying sense of humor. A little bit deadpan. My family did not think I was funny. Growing up, my family would be like, you're not funny. And then I'm hanging out with Garry and I would just tease him. I'd be like, you pig or whatever. Like he would just laugh and he'd be like, you're funny. I was like, no, I'm not. So and he would be like, you telling me I don't know what I'm talking about? Oh my God. So there are moments for me of that special kind of humor that Garry specialized in, which was that awkward, sort of goofy, moments. But yeah, it just, evolved and evolved. And he started introducing me to his friends. He introduced me to a few of his best friends. And I just got to know the business side from him. And he gave me a real special perspective on writing comedy.
So was he somebody that you never expected to? My computer's like feedback on me, so please ignore if I kind of stop and go, wait. Was he somebody that you, because I think one of the questions is about mentors is like, were you ever really thinking about asking if he would read your work, or were you always like, oh no, I'm not doing that, I'm never going to do that? And then when he asked you, you were like, I guess.
I was truly terrified. Genuinely.
I can imagine.
It was like standing in like, a ray of truth. I mean, the guy was he's so powerful and that level of celebrity also has its own power and influence. And, you're in the office and it's like the White House is on the line. Garry, the White House is on the phone for you, and you're kind of like, am I in a television show? Like, you just sort of as a regular, ordinary human being cannot believe the caliber of things that are happening in the office. You're like, wow. But, I'd come from, my life as an exec. So I was like, yeah, this is life, and we work together. So I sort of expected to be a little bit the girl behind the glasses and not, bring anything else to the table. But we just became friends. We would watch movies together and he'd go, what do you think? And I would tell him what I thought. I would say, this is really what I think. And he'd be like, that's a good opinion. And then he started bringing me more into meetings. I want Kaia here because I like to hear what she thinks. Kaia, what do you think of this promotional photo? What do you think of that? So being courageous enough to say, I like it, I don't like it, here's why I like it, here's why I don't like it. And the courage to assert your own opinion. I'm neurodivergent. I don't have a great poker face. I have no poker face. So if I don't like it, it's like, it's just all over my face. It's terrible. And he liked that. He was like, oh, she's real, so that was really valuable to him as mentor, going like, I have someone who's not going to yes me or, be sociopathically trying to get something from me. I love to breathe his air. I learned so much from him. I love to learn. So genuinely loving to learn. Write that down. Genuinely loving to learn. Because mentors are looking like, who's going to be receptive? Yeah. In Hollywood, everybody's like, I want something, clamor, clamor, clamor. How can I get my thing? Me. And if you're out there going like, I want a mentor, be my mentor, it's like, people go, no. But if you're genuinely there, like, I want to learn everything I can. What can I absorb from your experience? Like, I was 29, he was 57 when I met him. So I knew he had lived so much more life and seen so much more. And I just took a lot of notes. I have all the notes still. I have journals full of them.
That's awesome. You should publish those. Garry Shandling notes.
In a screenplay, Shayna.
Awesome. That's so cute. All right. So I want to hear, Kawan, how did you meet Kaia? How did this relationship start? Take me through, and everyone who's watching, not just me, but I'm like this. Take me through sort of your journey, how it started with Kaia.
So in 2021, I think I had published a book in 2020, the year before. So I was transitioning back into what I thought was going to be my career on Wall Street. I was starting to get back into the financial game, sales, and things like that. And my best friend, I said, hey, we should write a story together. Mm-hmm. I'm like, dude, I just wrote a book. They can read the book. I'm fine with that. Like, I'm moving on. And he was like, no, we should write a story together. So I wrote a story. I pitch it. Doesn't go anywhere. I'm like, all right, dude, I'm going back to doing this finance thing. And then I pitched to who is now my manager, Tesla Schaefer. And then, you know, when I'm like a dog with a bone. When I get on a mission, it's like I have to go full throttle. So I was like, well, if I'm going to be a writer, I need to get to know other writers. Mm-hmm. So I started setting up virtual coffees, you know, every couple of days. And I ended up doing 150 of those or something like that with different writers. But in the midst of that, I saw this person on Twitter who had like this wolf thing going on, and her name was Kaia. And I was like, let me look at what she's talking about. And she had this thread. And I was like, I really like what she said there. And I didn't know what a development exec was, because if I did, I probably wouldn't have messaged her at all. So when I saw that, I was like, well, I like this thread. Maybe she'll talk to me. And I have the message, Kaia. I found the message. It's actually right here. It's on April 16, 2022. I said, Kaia, your thread was so inspiring and valuable, especially the bit about networking, make friends. I'd love to do a virtual coffee with you if your schedule permits. Anyway, keep being great and happy spring holidays. Gratefully. And I put my initials, KG. Who did I think I was? Like, she doesn't know me from a can of paint. But she graciously accepted my request, and we talked. And it's just like we've been discussing. Mentorship is not hey, Kaia, can you please be my mentor? I need your advice. I need whatever you have to get me to the next level. Right. It was a conversation that genuinely led to me being a student in MBS, and led me to absorbing that class and that community, becoming an integral part of it. And then when the class is over, I'm like, all right. And then Kaia just kind of got me. I was like, yeah, I really can't let you go. So
that's exactly what I said.
Why don't you just come over here and work?
You can't graduate.
Yeah, why don't you just come work with me? And just like with Garry, when she was talking about, she would ask me to do stuff, but then she would ask my opinion. And I'm like, are you asking me what I think? You want to hear what I have to say? Like, what's happening here? And gradually more and more that would happen. And then one day I looked up, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, particularly the original trilogy. That's like my jam. And I started realizing, obviously I'm the main character. I'm Luke, right?
Sure. Of course.
So if I'm Luke, then Kai is Obi-Wan. And that's how I look at our relationship, you know, because there are things that I did. I was loud. I could be loud and very enthusiastic. But if people were to dig through that, especially at that point in my career, I didn't have the competence. I didn't have the understanding. I didn't have the wisdom that I do now, and I gain organically through our conversations, through our interactions. And with that building relationship, I remember I just looked up one day and was like, oh man, she is my mentor. Like, why didn't I see this sooner? But that's how organically typically happens. Because I've been in situations where people are having to come up to ask me, hey, be my mentor. And I'm like,
yeah.
Like, are you just lumping your responsibility on me? And with the mentorship relationship, there's also, you gain a lot of value, you gain a lot of understanding, you gain the knowledge. So I'm in like the school of Kaia, who's in the school of Garry Shandling, and so on and so forth. but as a mentee, you also start finding ways to add value. So
Sure.
like working for the company. So like giving my opinion on different ideas, giving a different perspective that allows us to shape our initiatives and what we're doing going forward. So when I started realizing, oh, I can also give something back to her. I can also be of service to her. I can also make her life easier. And I'm still gaining stuff that I wouldn't have gained elsewhere. That's when I knew it was a real relationship. And it's still growing and changing and evolving every day.
Wow, that I love that. And I mean, the thing that about both of those is that they happened organically, and you, Kawan, were looking for guidance, you were looking for help, but you didn't go and say, "Hi, will you be my mentor?" Because there's something about that that instantly makes somebody go, "What do you want from me? I can't give you all my time and energy, and it feels like you're going to like suck the life out of me." Right?
Right.
That's just sort of like that initial feeling of like, "Oh no, I can't give you what you need." So I love that what you said about that you also are there to help and offer your skills and your opinions to her, and so it's a mutual thing instead of a transactional relationship.
Right.
It's just like give me, give me, give me.
Kawan did a number of things right. So let's call them out. Let's look at what they are, because they're things that everyone on this call can do. Firstly, he was paying attention. Whether he's on social media, on Twitter or on LinkedIn or on Instagram, out there in the world, walking through the world, he's paying attention and he's going, what I have a goal. I have an aim. He's very purposeful. He's like, I want to achieve my goal. And he's looking at where is the information that he needs. So he noticed a thread that I had given that was of value, and he went, that's good information. And then he chose to approach me to ask for 15 minutes of my time. In this industry, if you ask for 15 minutes, you will often get it, because 15 minutes isn't very much time. So he asked for a 15-minute virtual coffee. He was complimentary. He was professional. And I was like, who is he? I look him up. I see, oh, he has this book called Favor. He's a brain surgery stroke survivor. He's an interesting person. I thought he seems like someone I should know. He only asked for 15 minutes, right? He's not put a great big ask in the front window. It's just like 15 minutes. So we jump on, and in those 15 minutes, he was so focused about wanting to learn. Talk to me about being a development exec. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. And he's clearly taking notes for himself and for his career. But I could tell he's bright. He's smart. He's got a sophisticated presentation that comes from maturity. And it's not like me. It's like, how can I add value to you in this moment? And I was touched. Honestly, I was like, oh my gosh, he's wanting to add value to me. Like, what? I mean, I was sort of like blindsided by that, because again, in this industry, everybody's like, how can I get my thing that I want? So the seconds you can show up, you can all do this. You can show up and go, how can I make your life better? How can I help you? How can I support you? And that makes you the 1 in 100 of like, somebody goes, oh, I could trust you. I could lean on you. You could help me. And then you become a value to someone, and developing that trust in this industry, which is full of like sociopaths and narcissists. If you prove I'm trustworthy, you'll get the writer's assistant job. You'll get the staff writing job. The showrunner's going to lean on you and be like, oh, I can relax here because I know that you're showing up and bringing your best self. So Kawan's paying attention. He's looking for, where's the sparkle on the water of who could possibly help me? And you can all do that too. And look for who is that? Where's my next step on the path? Where's the signpost? Who's holding that signpost for me where I could go, and get that boon from that person and support them too, as a mentor-mentee relationship.
I mean, I love, Kawan, that you wrote her that message. And it was almost like a throwaway. Like you wanted to let her know that what she had shared was valuable, and you signed it with your initials, and you were kind of like moved on, and then she wrote you back. So that was like a wonderful thing. It wasn't like you were putting everything into that, saying, oh, I need her to write me back and I'm going to email her 5 times until she does. I love that it was organic in that way too. I think the key here I was trying to think of a fun way to say Obi Kainobi. Obi Kainobi.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna start using it.
Obi Kayanobi, that's who you are now. I mean,
You know,
that's like the greatest compliment in the world to be the Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, I feel the Star Wars thing, so I was like, whoa,
Like blushing.
and
sign
just
me
off,
up.
and just off that point, you know, a throwaway is a little like it comes from sales background. You know, when you're in sales, and that's kind of the world I come from, finance and sales. You want to impress upon them the urgency, the importance of what you have to say and what value you're offering. But at the same time, like I have 6 other clients to get to. So I understand if you pass on this. You know,
Sure.
I just want you to know that I see you, I see value in what you're doing. And if you see the same and possibly building something with me, great. If not, you know, we'll go our separate ways.
Right.
And with Kaia, again, I didn't know what a development executive was because that message would look completely different. I know for a fact I've been like, well, I noticed your work on this stuff, and I really like these things. So I think that my ignorance in this case worked in my advantage. I saw someone in the comments wanting to talk about more so focused on finding a mentor, and I think one of the things, and Kai, you were touching on this, is that you have to be prepared to be a mentee. Like you have to show up with a level of excellence, a level of professionalism, a level of stick to itness, focus, and also just know who you are. If you show up trying to be who you think they want you to be, if I showed up talking about surfing and I never surfed before, Guy would have sensed that immediately because she's a surfer. So I try to stick in the realm where we had commonality. I think mentees, or people who want to be mentees, often believe that they're just there to get. It comes with having the spirit of service, a spirit of giving back, because it's a value exchange and you grow and expand from that. But in order to find a mentor, you attract them by being prepared as a mentee. That's one of the things I've noticed.
But let's talk about when you want a mentor, when you're somebody, and all the people here obviously do, if you want a mentor, what are the correct and incorrect ways for you to, you know, there's the lovely organic way that yours happened. But if you're actually searching for somebody, what are the do's and don'ts of that?
Well, you have to know what you want to do, because if you want to be, I don't know, a car salesman, going after an actor to be your mentor is probably not the best course of action. So someone that's in your realm of influence, a realm of the things you want to do. So when vice versa, if you want to be a writer, going after a car salesman or a stockbroker probably won't give you that much help. So I think that's the first step. Just find that community that's in that space. And then what are your values? What do you actually want to do in the space that you're in? Do you want to write features, or do you want to write TV? Do you want to write in the fantasy space, or do you want to write sci-fi? And then you start narrowing and narrowing and narrowing down. And then you start not by asking, hey, you lady across the internet, be my mentor, but it's more like start engaging with them organically. If they like Star Wars, maybe watch a couple of episodes of Star Wars and a couple of movies, and then start talking about Star Wars, what you liked about it as a first-time watcher. Somebody that's a veteran Star Wars be like, oh man, you missed the part when Obi-Wan said this and that meant that for this movie. So those things for me, finding connection points, and that's something that Kai teaches me. Yes, is the first part of the pitch, the connection. You know, a wolf is my favorite animal. So when I saw the logo, I was like, oh man, we got stuff to talk about. But that commonality, I think that's a really important piece. And the people I've seen jump into conversation with people and start talking about what they like or what they've done and how great they think they are. And it's like the person on the other end that's want to be your mentor is stone faced because this has nothing to do with me. This is I don't relate to any of this at all. So I think that's a very important piece.
I think that's important about it's not only about them, it's about the relationship. So if there's things about that person that you like the wolf thing or something that stands out, like she says she likes surfing and maybe you want to learn how to surf, it's finding something Because if you don't actually like that person, if you don't like what they're doing as a producer, director, human being, you're probably not going to enjoy a mentorship with that person. And so if there's not a valid, back and forth with that person or some kind of connection, then it's probably not going to be the best place for you anyway.
And chemistry, like, do you get along? Do you pass the ball back and forth well? You're looking for that feeling, and that's it's sort of the ineffable connection that we're all looking for. I think when I wasn't necessarily looking for a mentee, for instance, but I do want to say that it did happen organically. So you can even end up with a mentorship with someone who's like not necessarily looking for that, and then realizes, oh my gosh, I can pour so much into you. I want to. And then on the other side, there are certainly mentors who are looking for mentees in this industry. And I'll give you an example. My phone rang a couple months ago from screenwriter Ben Lustig, who is the writer of The Princess, co-writer with Jake Thornton, $1 million screenwriter, huge career that we all aspire to, right? Really, and a beautiful heart of a human being. And he rang me up. He's been on my show, and he was like, Kaia, I'm looking for mentees. I want to give back. I've done so well in my career. I'm so lucky. I'm so fortunate. I've learned so much. And I'm looking for writers who are coming up who I can mentor on the business side. He's like, I couldn't possibly read them all. I'm so busy, all my stuff, but maybe there's some writers who need some tips, like how to navigate, this particular deal that they're putting together, et cetera. So we chatted about it, and I interviewed him a bit more about, like, well, what are you really looking for, and what do you want out of a mentee? And he was like, let me think about it. And about a week went by, and I got an email from him. Okay, here's everything I'm looking for from a mentee. And he came to me knowing that in the entertainment business school, I teach this to my students, and that my students have been vetted as serious. They want to be professional writers. So he knew if he got someone from me, they're serious about their career, and he would be wasting his energy and his time. So I said, I'm going to, based on your requirements and what he wanted, I said, I'm going to put together a list of 20 of my students for you, and I'm going to send it over. And I sent him the list, and then he opened an application, and we just let students from the entertainment business school go apply. And he found 4 mentees that way. Was super happy for life. They have him for life. And he picked mentees who are all in Los Angeles. They're all serious working writers, directors. Some have not ever been produced, and some have made a few things, shorts and features on their own, even an indie TV show. And it was amazing because he chose students who I knew, but he didn't know, had already bonded with one another and were already really connected. And he picked like a Wolfpack group that had already like really loved each other. So it was super sweet. And he got back to me afterwards and just said, this is so meaningful and valuable to me because I wanted to give back. And that's what your mentor is looking for. Someone who's knowing I want to give back is looking for, like, I've learned so much. Who could I give it to who's going to be like a great custodian of my knowledge and, have integrity and show up and be respectful and be kind and all of those important things. And the people who work in this industry, who are good people, it's like a very small song sheet. We all know who each other are. Or like, oh yeah, okay, well, if you work with him, oh, he's great, or she's great. Right. So I'm always like, if Kawan needs something, I was able to write like a fellowship recommendation for him. Because I know him. I'm like, oh my God, I believe in him. Please let me write that recommendation for you. And it hopefully carries weight coming from my desk. And so mentors will do things like that for you. Like in some cases, they might be able to employ you. Like Garry was working on he's show running the Larry Sanders Show, and he hires Judd Apatow. And Judd Apatow is working for Garry as a writer. And then he's starting to come up, and he's going from, staff writer to story editor to executive story editor. And later seasons, you're like, oh, Judd's a co-EP now. It comes all the way. He's been on all 6 seasons. And of course, now it's like Judd Apatow. Judd was one of Garry's mentees who worked for Garry super steadily. So you might have a mentor who employs you, who's like, I want to, invest in you. On my show on Hollywood Wolfpack, these are free episodes you can all go listen to. Listen to the episode with Richard Cahan. Richard worked on Outlander with showrunner Ira Bear. And Ira mentored him. He talks about that mentorship, how that came about. Sullivan Fitzgerald, who works on Criminal Minds as a writer, he talked about his mentorship with the showrunner on Criminal Minds. And you can start to interview others, like just bust out your notepad and be a bit of a journalist about it. Like, how'd you find your mentor? How'd you find your mentee? Have you heard about anybody on the street who's looking for mentees? And start taking names, like, because we all kind of have that in our backpack. Like, oh yeah, I know a couple people who are looking. So you might not even make the direct ask of like, oh, will you mentor me? But like, hey, by the way, let me put it out there, looking for a mentor. Right. Do you know anybody? And then that also kind of keeps it like open where they could go, well, actually, and then
right. Yeah, it's that community. It's building your network of people. And like Kawan was saying, is being intentional about it. You can put it out there into your world that you're looking for. I would love to find a mentor. So in case, something pops up. And that's such an amazing story about, what's his name? Ben
Lustig,
yeah, who came to you looking for mentees. And, you had people because they're in your network. And you had this great resource for that person. So it works both ways. I think probably that's, from my perspective, the best way to go about it is just start putting it out there and then being intentional about those asking for 15 minutes. So if you did get, what's your advice on this? If you did get a meeting, so let's say you're putting out feelers and you're asking for that 15-minute coffee Zoom or whatever. And then you get it. And then you're like, oh no, no, what do I do? What are some questions to ask? Do you ask questions the whole time? Do you just tell about yourself? Do you not talk about yourself at all? Like in that 15 minutes, what's the best way to navigate that kind of space?
Kawan, what do you think? And I'll piggyback.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think ignorance was my best friend because, again, I didn't know what a development exec was. So it was just a conversation to me.
Sure.
Like, this is 15 minutes. I'm going to ask you questions. Hopefully, my questions spark some of your questions. I'm going to get to know you. If you're interested, you can get to know me, and then the conversation will be over. I didn't look at it like it's not a job interview. It's not an interrogation. It's not a pitch. It is a conversation because you're trying to not develop a mentor or gain a mentor. You're trying to build a relationship.
Sure.
And I approached it that way. So when I got on a call, it's like, hey, Kaia, nice to finally meet you. How's your day going? Mm-hmm. And then we go from there. We roll right into the conversation from there. And then we got into surfing and writing and wolves and EBS and all the other things that made sense for that conversation. But you show up as you are in your most authentic self, because I heard this saying and I carry it around now. Your reputation will get you in places your character can't sustain. Mm-hmm. So if you show up as this other person, and then throughout the conversation, the real you comes out, they're going to suss that out and it's not going to end well. So I just showed up as I was and started talking. And I can talk for a long time. So it was bound to turn into something.
So what happens though if you're not a talker? If you're somebody who's like an introverted person who is like, oh no, I should have some preparation for like how I'm going to go into it.
Bring a legal pad. Seriously, like go into, it's 15 minutes, but bring 10 questions with you prepared so that you have your 10 questions of this person, of their career. My 2 favorite questions from my podcast that always make someone excited to meet you and talk to you is, what are you the most passionate about right now? Mm-hmm. And what are you the most proud of? You can also ask questions about like, what's the biggest challenge you were ever up against and how'd you deal with it? Mm-hmm. So you're trying to understand from them how they're navigating their career. What tip do you have for me? What advice do you have for me? What mistakes should I avoid? So that you're understanding, and you just are writing, if they'll let you record, great, record. Or if you're just taking notes, take notes, but bring those questions and know that they probably will want to turn it back on you and say, oh, and Shayna, tell me about you. What are you writing? And then you'll have a moment to be able to share either like a quick signature story or a little, moment from your life, or possibly a project that you're working on that you think, oh, if, I know that Shayna loves dogs, so I'm going to tell her about my dog story, right?
I do love dogs. What is a signature story? You just mentioned that.
Yeah, I encourage all my students to develop a story that comes from their marrow, and Kawan has a great one, so maybe you should share a signature story that leads into their brand and their brand statement. So take it away, Kawan.
Yeah, so I thought I lived an easy life. I thought everything was made up for me. Like, I decided when I first saw Jurassic Park, I love stories, but I also knew that I didn't know how the movies were made. I thought it just showed up on the screen. So I decided then I was going to be president of the United States. That was my whole, I don't know how that logic made sense, but there in that moment, I was like, I'm going to be president of the United States. And throughout high school, I excelled in everything I did. I graduated with a 4.0. I think that was weighted, the number 6 in my class of 800 students. And I ran track, I played football, and I got into college. I boxed. So I thought my accomplishments, my bravado, my confidence, my ability to be bigger than I was going to carry me forward. And I thought that was going to carry me straight to the White House. And then I got into college and I realized you have to shake a lot of hands. And I never liked shaking a lot of hands. I was like, I'm doing this finance thing. How am I going to be on Wall Street? I'll be the next Jamie Dimon or, something like that. And then life happened. I remember I was driving to my financial internship, preparing to get to Wall Street, and my right hand started slipping off the wheel. And it kept doing that, and it kept doing that. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not lifting weights, so like, what the heck is going on? I get to that place that I was working, and I sat at my desk, and at this time, just a disclaimer, I'm really arrogant. I'm really like, you can't tell me anything. So my boss, one of my other mentors, he said, hey, dude, are you okay? I'm like, why you even ask me that? But that's what I thought I said. But what I said was, and the words wouldn't come out of my mouth. So they sent me to a hospital. They sent me to a doctor. That doctor got nervous and sent me to a hospital. That hospital sent me to another hospital, and they both said the same thing. Hey, Mr. Glover, there's something in your brain that shouldn't be there. And I said, well, I'm in the hospital, so fix it. And they both said no. So they sent me home. I lost my vision, I lost my balance, and I had really bad headaches. I went back to the hospital. I had my first brain surgery, and that was in August of 2014. I rushed back to school because I knew I had to be in school to be on Wall Street. A month later, I had a stroke. I rushed right back to school a couple months after that, and then a year later, I had another brain surgery because the mass grew back. I graduated in 2017. I'm feeling high on a horse. I got a job, and a couple months later, it grew back. I had another brain surgery. So I reached a point in my life where I just didn't know where to go. And my grandmother had been in my ear saying, hey, you should write a book about it. You should write a book about it. You should write a book about it. And I'm like, Grandma, I'm going to Wall Street. I don't need to write a book. Like, you should write a book about it. You should write a book about it. So I wrote the book. I'm like, Grandma, I wrote the book. Now leave me alone. I'm going to Wall Street. And then it comes to where my best friends say, hey, you should write a story. You got a manager. Talked to a lot of people. Didn't know who I was talking to, but I started talking to a lot of people. And then I met Kaia. And now I'm here. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And that's just the abbreviated version, but yeah.
Right.
He is a fantastic writer. I read his book in 2 days. It was like I could not put it down. And he is a masterful storyteller. Really, truly talented writer. And, the hero's journey, right? The hero's journey.
Wow. I mean, I'm sort of flabbergasted at the whole hospital situation about sending you home in the first place. Like, that's still rolling around in my head. Like, what? Like, what?
It's funny that we're having this conversation now because the hospital surgery to me is like the craft, right? But there's a whole nother business side that I didn't realize was going on when I was there. And that's kind of what we do at EBX. It's like, we understand you want to make your script and your reel and all these things perfect and pristine, but there's another side that you often don't pay attention to as a writer, as a director, as a creative, as an above the line professional that we need to understand. So, in the hospital, there's also liability and insurance, and operating on the brain is high risk real estate, they call it. So going in before they knew exactly what was going on may have been a bad idea. At the time, I'm like, bro, do you even care about my life? But like, I realized that there were some other factors that went into place. So just like with this industry, I thought I just had to get my scripts great. But it's like, no, you're also in sales. You also have to negotiate. You also have to read contracts and know deal flow and understand what this industry is all about. And one of the core things I've learned that I've added to my repertoire because of Kaia is to continue to lead with excellence and to continue to lead with service on the mind. Because if you go in, they all have radars and they're just so pinpoint accurate. If you go into a conversation, I want, gimme, you're not even going to get 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But if you go with, here's what I have to offer you, it may add value. I may can add value in some other ways. And that's how I got those 15 minutes. And that's how we're here today.
What do you think are some examples of things as somebody who's going to reach out? As a writer, what do you think are some different things that we offer up without being, there's that fine line between being like arrogant, being like, well, I can do this for you and I can do that for you. But like, what are some actual attainable things that you can think of that are like, all right, in reality, like how can I possibly help you as an industry person,
Yeah, because I often say that extroverts have the best things to say. Introverts ask the best questions, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of writers are introverts. They used to working alone in silos, and maybe some people work in groups. I saw Jill was in here, one of my favorite people in the world. She's in one of my writing groups. You have to, Kaia puts everything into this. You have to find a point of connection and then ask a really interesting question about that. Like, what's your favorite kind of wolf? Do you put wolves in stables or do you let them run free? Like, how bad is a wolf pack? And then be like, why did you ask me that? It's a really interesting question. Maybe I want to, and they start looking into you because you found a point of connection and you expanded upon it. I think that is my golden nugget. Like, you may not have the credits, you may not have the notoriety, or everybody knows who you are, but if you can connect to that person, and this is something I do when I speak on stage, I don't speak to the whole room. I'm speaking to Kaia, I'm speaking to Shayna. So find out your most authentic point of connection with that person, and then ask a really sometimes outrageous question and respectfully, and then start building the relationship from that point.
All right, cool. Kaia, do you want to add anything to that about, what we could bring as somebody who maybe doesn't feel like they have a lot to offer? Is it just more about finding out who they are and what they're interested in and how you connect with them?
Everybody has needs, right? We all have human needs, every single one of us, whether it's the absolute basics, like, well, you got to drink water or you're not going to have a pulse. And in this industry, especially the more powerful you get, the more hard it is to find perspective that feels accurate. It's a subjective industry, right? So you're looking for people who will tell you the truth, share their opinion, ask to support you, ask to read you. This is something that's oft overlooked, is even the most successful writers, showrunners, etc. They have some script that they're like, gosh, I really need notes on this. And like, you could be like, hey, you need any notes on anything? Can I read something for you? Because then you're offering your opinion, you're giving a gift, and you're saying, here's what I see. Here's what you did great. Here's what I love. Here's what's amazing. And then here's something that confused me. Here's something I didn't understand. Here's something that I thought could be stronger on page 15. And you make a couple suggestions, and the person goes, oh, you know your stuff. That helped me. That made it better. There's so many relationships in this industry I've developed just by reading people and knowing that even the most successful people need to be read. So if I feel like, oh, there's a little chemistry, I want to build the relationship, I'll be like, what do you need notes on? Send it over. I'll turn around some notes for you by Sunday. Try to be timely about it. I'm like kind of terrible about being timely sometimes on the reading. I kind of lost my ability to read in the pandemic. I'm still working on it, but that focus was tough. But yeah, if you can turn around notes, that's helpful. An honest opinion, sharing something that we think could be better. So you're on a show, you're a staff writer, and you're like getting to know the show, you're getting to know your fellow writers, you're getting to know the showrunner, you're getting to know the actors, characters, all these elements to it all, but you're there to make it better. So you initially might not be sharing a lot, but if you share something, it's coming from that place of, here's what I think would make it better. And it's a genuine, joyful contribution. And if you're in a comedy room, it had better damn well be funny. And then everybody goes, oh, that was a funny joke. Maybe that goes in the monologue. Maybe that goes, in the character's voice. So that all of that value that you can add as you get to know someone, you also get to know their needs. This is a very high octane business. It is 24/7. It never sleeps. It seems like we've been through such tumultuous times in the last couple of years. And then also everybody, it feels like you're on a sports team. Because we're winning. Oh, we're losing. We're winning. Oh, we're losing. And it's like that all the time. So even if you felt like you were winning last year, this year you're like, I'm irrelevant this year. They don't love me anymore. And so there's this emotional roller coaster that never stops. And the fear of first the fear is, how can I go from being irrelevant to relevant? How can I break in? Right? How can I get noticed and get seen for my talent? And then once you're in, you're like, oh my God, how do I stay in? How do I stay relevant? How do I, make sure that I still matter with all the young people coming in as I age out? And everybody, it's like our egos, right? Gary would say, like our ego always has a fear, and it just replaces an old fear with a new fear. It just slots a new one in. It's like, oh, we handled that one. Here's a new one. You're like, oh my God, So anybody that you're around, they have their needs, they have their fears, and they value someone they can trust. So in those elements of being trustworthy, Kawan is always on time. He's always there. I know I can rely on him. Sometimes I'm like, am I relying on him too much? I want to make sure I'm adding value to his life, because he has made my life so much infinitely better just because he's there. And that the high caliber of intellect and support and brilliance that he brings to every interaction. I also know, and this is important, he flies the banner of my reputation and of the entertainment business school. So when I'm not in the room, do I trust him to fly that banner? And to the moon and beyond, I trust Kawan. And that's not true of everybody. And that will be true for your showrunners and the jobs that you want to have and the producers that you're dying to work with. They're going, do I trust you to be the banner and bearer of my reputation when I'm not in the room? Do I trust you to helm this episode? Do I trust you to take that meeting? If I say, hey, I recommend you to this manager, are you going to make me look good? And this is an industry where your reputation can go down in flames overnight. I could list a bazillion examples. Don't be a cannibal. I mean, there's a ton of them, right? Your reputation can go all kinds of horrible ways to a dumpster fire in 5 minutes. And the truth always comes out. It always comes out. That was a huge thing I learned from Garry Shandling, was about reputation management. Because you are your reputation. And Kawan mentioned it earlier, and it's a point that I don't want to gloss over it. I wanted to actually emphasize that, because Kawan said it so well. You are your reputation, and you need to be your reputation. So if you have a good reputation, you want to continue to back that up by delivering your talent, by delivering your best, most perspicacious, self in each moment, and adding value to the room, but also coming in with that intention of how can I add value? before every meeting I have a little ritual that I do, whether I'm in my car or I'm jumping on a Zoom. I stop and I just go, what's the one word for what I'm giving in this meeting? It might be like, okay, I'm going to give presence. I'm going to give honesty. I'm going to give joy. I'm going to and I think about it. What am I giving in this moment? Because I know if I don't do that, I'm a little neurotic. And you know what's going to happen? My neuroses is going to hit like a tidal wave on your beach. And you don't want that. That sucks. And we all are human beings. We all have that. We all have shit going wrong at every given moment. So you have to also kind of manage, like, the shit going wrong needs to go in the folder, in the file over there. And I got to be able to compartmentalize so that in this moment, I'm available to my showrunner. I'm available to the show. I'm available to the producer. And I'm available as my own best self and the best I can bring it. And sometimes that is just also being honest and going like, guys, I'm struggling today. Mom is in the hospital. Or guys, I'm struggling today because my kid is, failing school or whatever. We're human beings. And if you can unpack it for 1 second and be like, this is what's happening for me. If I seem a little off, I just want you to know, so that you got it out. You got it off your chest. You're like, I'm nervous to share that, but there it is. Let's do our best work today. And then people are like, oh, right, Shayna's a human being. Kawan's a human being. And I feel closer to you now because you've been a little vulnerable and you've let me in a little bit. And also, I might be a little more forgiving. If you're having that rough day, I might be like, oh, it's not me. It's not us. You got something going on. And I'm going to be like, oh, I totally get it. And I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you do the heavy lift because I know how big your heavy lift actually really is. I mean, Garry, when I was with him in his office, for so many hours, one of the things he really let me see was his pain. He had been in a big lawsuit with his manager, major $10 million lawsuit with Brad Gray. It was very painful for him and his reputation. And he talked about it a lot. And he talked a lot about what he learned, what he wished he did differently, how he would have handled it better. And one of the things he wished was, as a creative, major international global comedian, that he hadn't just given the business side completely to his manager and taken his eye off the ball. He was just doing his creativity and going, oh, thank God I have somebody to handle the business side for me. And that left him open and vulnerable to be taken advantage of. He didn't know his manager was a sociopath. They're very charming. They're very good at befriending you. You will fall in love with them. It happens all the time. Don't fall in love with them if you can help it, because they'll fleece you. And that's what they do. They don't have any feelings toward your well-being. They're there to get what they want to get, and they'll use charm to get it. And he found that out the hard way. He did ultimately settle that lawsuit, but it cost him a piece of his soul. He was, ow, like, this person I trusted with everything, every fiber in my being, let me down, hurt me, hurt my show. And that was really, really painful. It stopped him. It's the reason why we didn't get another show from him in early aughts, because he had a show planned, but he was like, I don't think I have it in me to do it again and to trust again and to open again.
Wow. That's horrible. See, even the top people get, well, I don't even know where to go from that.
I brought the room down. I'm sorry. I brought the room down.
It's okay.
I'll end it by saying this. Sarah Silverman and the beautiful docuseries that Judd Apatow did about Garry. It's on HBO. It's called The Zen Diaries of Garry Shandling. It's really wonderful. And there's this wonderful moment with Sarah Silverman where she goes, he hit so many home runs. He had 2 major hit shows. In a way, he had 3 major home runs, because he had It's the Garry Shandling Show, the Larry Sanders Show, and then he had All of Us. Meaning, like, we were his 3rd hit show. He gave us so much. He imbued his energy and his care and his empathy and his just fierce giving into all these amazing comedians that you see and love and know today. Probably his least famous mentee, right? Of everybody who you're like, oh yeah, Sarah Silverman and Judd and everyone like, Kaia who? That's good.
I get told sometimes I look like her, and I'm like, I do not see that I look like
I don't see that at all. No, I actually think you look more like Isla Fisher.
I've never gotten that one before. That's so funny. Anyway, so if not about me, but let's talk about this. Let's say that you do start sort of a mentor-mentee relationship. How long naturally, is this like a lifelong thing? Is that what you're hoping for? Is there something like, when do you know that it's run its course? Maybe how do you end that relationship in a nice way if maybe it's not working out for you?
Well, this is an industry, people drift and get busy.
Okay.
So, it's just, oh, I'm so busy. You don't need to ever be like, it's over between us. Like, I don't think that helps anybody. But if you realize this is no longer serving, then you get busy with what actually is serving. It can be a toxic industry. Sometimes you do have to put your foot down and be like, hey, you can't talk to me that way. I was really blessed that I did not have that experience with Garry, who was so kind, but it just depends on who you're with. And if somebody isn't treating you right, you either need to call them out, in which case, if you call them out, you're still investing in that relationship, because to call them out is to ask for a fix. You're saying, I care enough about you to say that this is a boundary for me, and I'm giving you a boundary. We're still working together. But if you realize, oh God, this relationship is untenable, just get busy and slip away and slip into something else. You'll just be so busy with so many other things. And, I don't think anybody ever really needs to know. That's just my philosophy, because I don't think it goes well for you or for them once the relationship really feels over. But in this business, sometimes people retire. Sometimes they have families and they go, oh God, I'm so busy with my family now. And there's this sort of a natural, new phase of life that happens. And then sometimes they come closer to you. And so sometimes they drift farther away. And like, I don't really ever delete anybody from my phone. It takes a lot. You have to really be horrible to me to delete you from my phone. So my phone might ring in 20 years. I've had the same number forever. So it could be 20 years ago. I haven't heard from you, but like my phone will ring and be like, oh, I still have your number in my phone. How's it going?
Right.
What's happening for you?
I love that. And on that same note, well, not on the same note, but I keep meaning to ask you this through the entire call, but how many mentees have you had, Kaia? And like, how do you manage that? Like, how do you work with, and I know you work with a lot of people in EBS, and it's like different ways, but when you're working with mentees, how many do you have, and how many do you kind of like go through the cycle with?
In the pandemic, I had 6. And they call themselves the Pen 6. They're wonderful, lovely young women all. And I read them. I gave them notes. And we were together for about a year of mentorship. And I'm still in touch with them, but it's no longer like an official mentorship. It sort of ended with the pandemic because we all went back to work. And then in my office and now working with Kawan, I read him and I try to support him with his endeavors, and he wants to be staffed on Harry Potter, and he absolutely belongs there. So we're speaking that he belongs on Harry Potter. It'd be such a great hire for that show. So he's the only one that I'm actually officially mentoring right now. But then I also have like a whole gaggle of students a couple times a year, and to some degree, I end up being like a sort of unofficial mentor for a lot of them who are sort of like, well, I still need you. And for me, this is more of a calling. This is like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And, I sometimes I write on the side. I love writing. I surf, as Kawan mentioned, and then I get to just love on all my students. And so a lot of people know this. A lot of people don't. Garry had a mentor, and Garry had an acting mentor. His name was Roy London. There's a very wonderful documentary that I know Garry would want me to mention called Special Thanks to Roy London. Roy tragically passed away of AIDS in the 90s, but before he passed away, he left us one of the greatest legacies ever, because his acting students, Gina Davis, Brad Pitt, Garry Shandling, Sharon Stone, the list goes on. That was his Wolfpack of students, this core group that he was teaching about how to access your love and your pain in any given moment on screen. He helped Sharon Stone realize she's not the girl next door, and then that opened her up to doing Basic Instinct.
Right.
So he had this very strong perspective, and Garry loved Roy and was very loyal to him, and gave Roy his first directing opportunities, directing episodes of the Larry Sanders Show he had never directed before. So they had a Wolfpack going, and he always talked about Roy reverently, brought him up a lot. I learned from Garry a lot of what Roy had taught Garry. So I also feel the responsibility of passing on this knowledge. I take it very seriously. Like when Garry left us, he left a huge hole in all of our lives and our hearts. We all miss him so much. So I know all of us, especially Judd, of course, who's been very out there, helping to keep his memory alive and with us, and has, you can go to GarryShandling.com and read his journals that have been published also in his book. So there's a lot of legacy that's been left to us because he gave us so much. So we want to make sure you get it too. It's like, go watch the show, go learn from me, go, watch what Judd's doing, because there is this fabric there of something really special that Garry had. And, you might drop in with a mentor who has a lineage. And a lot of people in this industry do. I mean, sometimes we kid people about being, you're a Nepo baby or whatever. But all through time, apprenticeship was also how people learned. Apprenticeship is a form of mentorship. It might come within your family. Emma Roberts, right? Her aunt is Julia Roberts. I'm sure there was some mentorship there that happened. You could be really lucky and win the genetic lottery that way. Or it might come through someone you meet randomly in a store like I did. Now we are all on Zoom. Kawan is not, I'm not in LA. I'm in North County, San Diego. Kawan is in DC. So when Kawan dropped into my DMs on Twitter and said, hey, 15-minute virtual coffee, we're not in the same city. And the virtuals are just so easy. So it doesn't really matter where you are. I have students all over the world. And I really believe in the rise of global film and television right now. We're in contraction in the States, but India's going strong. South Korea going strong. Nigeria coming up. We're seeing some major film markets rising that especially streamers are really interested in. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world anymore. Get to the film markets if you can. If you can get in person with people, it really helps. Go to Berlin, go to Cannes, go to TIFF. But also network within your own community, because there will be people in your own community who are like, hey, right now this weekend is the 48-hour San Diego Filmmaker Challenge. So a group of filmmakers are all making a short film this coming weekend. So that might happen in your city. That might be a great way for you.
I've done that before.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's wild. It's fun. It's crazy and wild. I think that answered Andre's question. He said, or he or she, here we have several people from other countries. What would you say to us about finding a mentor when we are so far away?
15 minutes Zoom.
I just spoke to that, but yeah, the 15-minute Zoom.
Yeah.
That's simple.
So, yeah, it doesn't matter now. We're all able to, mix and mingle. I didn't know you were in DC, and I didn't know you were in North San Diego unless you said that. I'm in Valley Village.
Well,
yes, hi. I'm going to throw it out to any questions or any kind of final comments. I want to make sure that we put up the link and the code again for Entertainment Business School. If you are interested,
let me speak about that for a second, because we have a summer session starting, and Shayna's going to be with us. We start August the 5th. We're in open enrollment right now. So from now until the 21st of July, we're in open enrollment. We have 2 tiers for you. And I know that we created that because some people need more financial support. So on the upper tier, balcony, you get to see everything that we're doing. You get to watch and learn everything that we're doing over the course of the 9 weeks. And orchestra level, I coach you. So I do some personal coaching, both in our workshops on Thursdays and in our office hours on Fridays. But Monday nights, every other Monday, we have a class mixer. So you get to make new friends, new Wolfpack, new fellow filmmakers and writers on the path. Tuesdays are my lecture with slides on all of our different topics. So I'm going to look at my wall because I have my whole syllabus. It's the Entertainment Business 101, how to navigate this industry. Week 2 is vision and strategy. Week 3 is branding. Week 4 is community building or finding your Wolfpack. Week 5 is pitching. Week 6 is publishing an IP. I'm a published author, so is Kawan. It goes really deep, threads really deep through this industry of Hollywood. Week 7 is financing. Week 8 is negotiation. And week 9 is deal flow. So for 9 weeks, you get to be with your fellow students and with me as a mentor, really, in class, to learn about the business and to start to brush up on your business skills, so that like a manager signs you and then knows, oh, hey, I can turn Shayna loose. She's got this. Any room she walks into, I'm like, she's got this. She's going to make me look great. Go get them, Shayna. And that's really what we support our students to feel like they're totally industry ready. You have a whole map. You're like, oh, I have corners of the map illuminated. Look at that. I was feeling like I'm in the dark and I don't feel that way anymore. Come to us with your questions over the course of that time. So we start August the 5th. ISA, we wanted to give a nice special deal because they just are so wonderful, and all of y'all in their audience are so brilliant. So we're giving you $50 off. That's the best special that's going right now. So grab it and take advantage of it. There's a special ISA coupon code for that you can use at both levels of the checkout. So whether you're in balcony or orchestra, take advantage of that coupon code and sign up, because when the class is locked and loaded, it is the last class of the year. And it's a weird year for the industry. We're in contraction. It's a strange cycle, and Paramount just selling and everything else that's happening. And we do a lot of business analysis in class, and that helps you with your positioning. Okay, what's happening? Well, based on what's happening, where do I belong, and what projects should I be developing, and how should I build out my portfolio right now? And you start to get a sense of where you fit. And the support that's available for you there. We have some amazing students in this class. I'm excited. I've been signing them up. And right now I offer EBS twice a year. So in summer and in winter. So the next time we offer it is going to be late January or early February of 2025. And it just works out. It works out best that way because I can put all of my focus and attention on the students for those full 9 weeks.
I'm excited.
I'm so excited.
If anyone has any more questions, this is your last moment to throw them in the chat. Otherwise, we are going to say goodnight and go make some dinner for our children, or I am going to.
Good. I should put it on start so I can see some of the questions. Oleg has one. My question to Kaia: why do you do mentorship as a work, and what exactly does this do for you? I think that comes to the question of like what mentors are looking for. And remember at the beginning of the call, I said some mentors want to mentor in craft and others want to mentor in business. And I realized kind of in the last couple of years, I don't really want to be a craft mentor. I don't want to teach writing. I don't love, mentoring someone else on their craft. It's just like, it doesn't like light up my Christmas tree, but I love strategy. I'm a strategist. I love strategy. So mentoring someone on the business side on, what are you doing? What actions are you taking? What should you go out with? All of those strategic elements, make me really happy. So when I mentor, that is something that I love to give back. And again, it's like contribution is a human need. Making a contribution. You will be depressed if you do not get to make a contribution in this life, whether you are teaching your child to ride a bike or you're helping someone else, carry the groceries up the stairs or something else. It's life giving. It's life fulfilling to make a contribution. So there is no class that I don't walk away from where I'm not just walking on air. I'm like, I got to give to the students, and that giving makes me so happy. My family notices it. They're like, could you teach a class this week? And it's clear. So a lot of mentors are really looking for that. Like, I want to make a contribution, especially as we get older. I'm kind of coming around the corner, my 50th. So I'm like, oh, wow, life is short, life is short. And I want to make sure that I'm supporting others while I'm here. I sometimes tease and joke with my students that I'm in it for the well-attended funeral. So you better be there.
I'm continuing the legacy here. And it's like, now, I hear you on that. I think that's, they will show up. You know what I mean? And I did love that idea though, of like, you learned from somebody who had a mentor. And so you are carrying on a legacy in sorts, and you're bringing that knowledge down, and Kawan's going to do the same thing. He's going to feel that desire to help somebody else. And I think if collectively our entire industry had that attitude and we all really wanted to give back to people in whatever way we can, in there's small ways and big ways and bigger people and smaller people, I think we would be so much better off than we are now. So even if you don't feel like you can help, I'm sure you can help somebody.
You can. It's a little bit of it's a bit of a Wizard of Oz story, if you will, because Dorothy's whole thing was like, I got to find the wizard. I got to go home. And I think that's all of us writers who are like, I got to get a manager. I want to get my show on the air, like with the wizard and go home. And this vision that we have for our lives. And then what happens? Glenda, the good witch, comes and is like, follow the yellow brick road. Oh, there's a path. It's illuminated. It's golden, the golden path. You feel it in your heart. It's the path of the heart. Walk that path. And then ultimately, yep, you are going to find the wizard, but it turns out he's not such a great wizard, but he's a really great therapist. And he's going to be like, hey, the power was always inside you, right?
Right. And you help people along the way without even
people along the way. And she gets to find her wolf pack. She makes all these awesome friends, and she wasn't in it going, I can't wait to find my friends. She was like, I got an agenda here, people. And like, I think that's all of us in this business. We all maybe are some level, at least I can speak for myself, certainly, and some of my own friends who are colleagues in this industry, like some level of like human wound. We came from a woundedness, wounded family, wounded inner child, I'll call it. And then you come to this industry because you're like, I feel like my answers will be here. Like I'll have fans and people will discover I actually am awesome, or just whatever egos pull us on. But then you start to realize I'm making friends who see me. And for so many of us, I'm bi, I'm queer, I'm neurodivergent. I was not in a family where I totally felt seen. I'm just different. I'm just different. So that's true for a lot of creatives who are like, maybe your parents were like, accountants or something. Like, do they get you? Do they see you? And you might be going, but where's my wizard? And you think you're looking for a manager, but what you end up finding are your wolf pack and your friends and your colleagues and your mentor and your support and your fairy godmother, right? Or your Obi-Wan Kenobi, or whoever shows up in your path to say, the power was inside you all along. To get yourself home. You're like, it always was, there's no place like home. And it turns out that power was in you all along. And it's that mythical story that all of you are on. You're all in a mythical journey to get yourself home. We're all walking each other home in that way. We're conquering the demons and dragons together. And I think we're doing that on a global level as well, because the power of television and film is an international language. And it's one we all speak. It's one we all love. It's one that's beloved to all of us, and it's one that's transformed all our lives. Or I don't believe that we would be here wanting to do what we do. You wouldn't be here wanting to tell your stories unless on some level you were transformed by a story. So I'll leave you with this. If you ever have the chance to meet someone, and I hope you do, in Hollywood, whose story changed your life, or maybe you meet the creator of a show who's the reason you're in this business. You're like, oh my God, I could finally get to meet you and shake your hand. You're the reason that I'm even want to be a screenwriter. If you have the opportunity to say that to someone, we live for that. We live for that. I would see it with Garry, where somebody would walk up to him and say, I don't want to bother you, but I just want to shake your hand and say thank you. Because of you, I became a screenwriter, because you changed my life. And, would you do me the honor and privilege of letting me shake your hand? And he would just be like, smile, and he would be so happy. And he'd be like, tell me what you're working on. And he would always engage with those people from his heart. So wherever you can bring your own heart in those moments, if you get the opportunity to shake the hand of someone who changed your life, be sure to tell them, because it will mean the world to them. We release our stories onto screens, and we don't really know how the audience reacts, so you always want that. I touched someone, and we're in this business to touch people. I really believe that.
I love that. It made me think of mine when I met Penn Densham, who wrote Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I was like, thank you for making that movie. I don't know.
Was that the Carrie Elwes?
No, that one was the spoof one. This is the one with Kevin Costner.
Yes.
I loved that movie. It made me want to make movies. I was like, oh. And now Kawan needs to meet George Lucas and get off into the Harry Potter world. I'm your people, Kawan. We're like Star Wars and Harry Potter. Like, let's go. All right, everybody, that is it for us. Thank you so much to Kaia Alexander and Kawan Glover, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. Thanks, everybody. I'm findable. Find me. Ask me any of your questions. I'm available.